is 180 degrees and not any other number. But in fact, there is only one correct answer in that case. There is no other correct answer. So all the other answers are in fact equally incorrect. It doesn't matter how much how far they are from the real one. They're wrong.
Facts are not dogmatic. Facts simply are.
And Dawkins also brings up that point of the thing that's thrown at atheists. Why are you atheists so angry? And I find that you get into a discussion like this with a creationist or a believer, and you become impassioned about what you're saying. You become very emphatic, and they pull that slimy little thing about you're being they deliberately misconstrue passion or vehemence with anger. And
it's a logical fallacy. It's called the ad hominem attack. It's attacking the character of the person rather than the argument of that person. But yes, I've been asked often enough, for example, when people find out that I'm an atheist, often the first question is, so what happened? As in, what kind of trauma?
Question. You grew up in Rome, Italy.
Yes.
Okay, what happened?
What happened?
You're not supposed to be an atheist.
No, that's right. I'm supposed to be a good Catholic. Although in reality, and in fact, I grew up at a couple of miles from the Vatican, and to me, actually, the presence of the Pope was particularly evident on Wednesday mornings. That's because Wednesday morning the Pope has these open audiences to the public. He accepts the public coming in, which means that traffic in downtown Rome, it's impossible because everybody wants to get to the Pope. And so to me, the main presence of the Pope while growing up was, oh no, it's Wednesday morning again, we're going to be late for work. But
was your family?
My family is Catholic. My family is Catholic, although not particularly practicing, like most Italians. Most Italians don't practice Catholicism, as a matter of fact. But it is Catholic, and I grew up Catholic. I did the First Communion and I went to sort of catechism and so on and so forth. So what happened? Here's an interesting thing. I can tell you what happened to in my specific case, but I think the more interesting point is what happens in general as a trend. And there was a book that came out a few years ago called Amazing Conversions by two social scientists who actually looked at the data. The amazing conversions are either a situation where an atheist becomes a believer or the other way around. And they asked, how does that happen? And they found an incredibly interesting asymmetry in the two cases. If a non-believer, usually not an atheist as in somebody who's actually thought about atheism and has a philosophical foundations for it, but just a person who does not go to church or who is not active in a religion. When they become religious, very often, not always, but very often, that is in fact the result of a trauma. It is the loss of a child, it is the loss of a parent, it is something, 9/11, it is something big that happened in their lives that causes an incredible emotional shock, and one way to react to that shock is in fact to sort of embrace some sort of supernatural belief. The other way around, it doesn't happen that way at all. What these scientists found out in their book, Amazing Conversions, is that the process from believer to atheist is a very slow one. It goes through a lot of readings, a lot of talking, a lot of growing, a lot of pain often. So it's a much more thoughtful process. Now, that's exactly what happened to me. I mean, it started in junior high school, and then by the time I was in middle high school in Italy, when you go to high school, you have to take 3 years of philosophy. And during my second year of philosophy, I came across a book by Bertrand Russell. It was not Why I'm Not a Christian, which I read later, but it was simply his autobiography. And his autobiography, which is a fascinating story of a man who was concerned about social justice. The guy got arrested several times. Every time that he protested against the war, he protested against World War I, World War II, and the Vietnam War. And he got arrested. And you can see that this is a compassionate person. He's a good person, and yet he says, "I'm an atheist. I don't believe." And so that sort of gave me the first glimpse of, well, so it is possible to be moral and being an atheist. And over a period of years, by keep reading several sources, that's the way it happened. And it happens to a lot of people that way. So it's interesting that when the question is asked, well, what happened, meaning what kind of trauma did you go through, the answer is nothing, really. It was very slow and very gradual. But that is also why, once you get on that side, once you get an atheist, as in somebody who thoughtfully got to that point, it's very difficult to go back. I don't know many atheists who go back at that point.
And all of you atheists who are listening to this or watching this program, can attest to this. This is true. This is what we hear over and over again. It's a very difficult process, and that's why it's very hard, and they get angry that they had to go through this process in life, that why did I have to be taught this religion, only it became a part of my life, and then I had to go through this period of time getting away from it, which was painful. It made me feel like I was rejecting my family and everything else, and and
right. But that's as opposed to the actual cause of why someone became an atheist. Because when I was we first started my local show in New York City Atheist Live on Tape, we were interviewing a lot of our members, and out of 10, 15 members, whatever number of shows we did, not one stated a traumatic experience as being the reason for their being an atheist.
But I think that what Ellen just said about the painful process in terms of emotionally painful is, in fact, may explain why some atheists really truly are angry. At least they go to a phase of anger. Because, frankly, why did I have to spend 20 years? Why didn't somebody tell me earlier on that,
why did you lie to
here's
me?
The reality? That's
why
right.
did you lie to, right, you lied to me, and not maybe intentionally, but it was a lie all the same. And it's an intellectual experience. We're down to like 10 seconds. And
wow.
The time did go fast. These are wonderful shows. Thank you again, Dr. PIII.
My pleasure.
Dennis, thank you all for watching The Atheist Viewpoint. We'll see you next week.